Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the second broadcast, or the next broadcast, from the First Church of the Presence of God. I'm going to talk about what that is a little bit tonight before we get on to whatever else there may be. I should mention that my friend Binky is here. Binky is my puka. Have you ever seen the movie Harvey with Jimmy Stewart? Well, he has a friend. It's a 6-foot rabbit. He's invisible to most people until then you start to see him, and then either it makes you wonderfully sane or you go nuts. Now, this is kind of what the truth does to people. Some people, when they're, confronted with the truth, they are marvelously touched by it, and they want to hear more. It can become their whole world, as it has for me, which is not saying that there's no falsehood in me or that I don't make errors on occasion, because I certainly do. But in that, for me, making contact with the truth immediately developed into a torrid love affair. One might even say a greater love affair than any other love affairs that I've ever had. And I'm a poet. So that goes with, the young Lochinvar thing. And yes, I have been a fan of the marvels of the feminine spirit for a very long time. And in fact, I was drawn eventually then to the divinity aspect of her, and that is where my love is set since. And she is the embodiment of truth, and as I never tire of saying, though I don't say it that often, when the truth takes off its clothes, the world disappears. And that's so, because it is the world that sits in front of the truth. And it occupies our attention. It completely consumes our attention. And it's like a Christmas tree that has all kinds of ornaments on it. Only every one of these ornaments is like a gift of some kind, or like a must-have attraction, and it hits you in different centers of your being. In some cases, you want to consume it. In others, you want it to consume you. Well, I could go on in that particular area or vein of thought, but I won't. I want to stay on this main theme here. The truth. In fact, there was a movie made about how inconvenient it is by somebody who had no interest in telling the truth. The truth strikes humanity in one of two ways, as I already mentioned the first, which it creates a love affair. You can't get enough of it, okay? And I don't want to say so we will try to catch that. On the other hand, it makes you very angry or very afraid. Or it first makes you afraid, then it makes you very angry. Almost like a cornered rat. And this is the world we live in, and this is what Jesus Christ was up against. He came and told the truth, which really offended the people that were making big money from lies, as is the case today. Anyone who's making a whole lot of money is an enemy of the truth. By definition, okay, it's what happens. And the same thing goes on in the other area, because the truth washes you. It's like a cosmic washerwoman. It comes along and scours you out. And for a lot of people, that's very uncomfortable. Yeah, it's like you're in the bathtub and your mother's giving you a bath and she gets that soap in your eyes. Something along those lines. If you just be still, it'll be over soon enough. But, we're not like that. We're really impatient, and we're always afraid of what's going on because we don't understand. That's why understanding is such an important quality to acquire, because with understanding, which is a feminine quality, with understanding comes a whole lot of insight. Now, I personally am very, very fortunate in that I met God on a beach once many years ago. And then my world turned to shit. And lots of bad stuff happened to me over and over and over again because I was being scoured from the inside out, because God touched me and it caused this enormous Kundalini reaction in me. And for about 3 years, I was in this state of like incredible dynamic tension. I became so physically strong that it was well, very helpful when I was in prison, I'll tell you. But otherwise, once again, fear. It frightened people. And this thing in me frightened people terribly. I mean, they tried to put me away forever. They tried to kill me too, but neither of those things happened because God's real. So, move ahead. And in the process of everything that was happening to me, I came to get more and more insight into the nature of God, what God is. And though I will never know, nor will you, I did get more familiar with things that I knew were associated with God. And primarily, that is love. As I said, I love the truth, and God is the truth. God is a constant revelation. If you can get your attention on God. See, the trick is not you holding God's attention, but God holding your attention, okay? God's always there. And if you want to find God, that's not all that difficult. You just have to be determined. And determination with today's attention span, that's a little bit of a reach. Anyway, time went on. And I gained more and more insight into what was happening to me, into what the world was doing. As I say, the world gets between you and God. And the God has all kinds of slinky, sinuous movements because the God takes the shape of woman on the carnal level to draw you off the path from going toward God, which doesn't mean that women are evil or anything like that, okay? Because though women are the fall of man through the sensitive life, in that you are attracted to form and drawn into that representation, it's also what lifts you out of it. Man may, with certain arguments, say that women has caused his fall, but only through women will he rise again. That's a fact. There's always a connection beyond the connection you think you're making. A lot of people are very satisfied with the fundamental and elementary connections. Okay, that's it, I got it. But because people do not look deeper and deeper and deeper. And this you can do when love enters the picture. When you love God, you will attract God. That's why it's called the greatest commandment. Not really a commandment anyway, it's a piece of advice. Yeah, just had a personal moment there. Anyway, when you love God, God is helpless before that love. God can't resist it. God must come. That's part of the law. It's a rule. Most people don't know this, but it's a fact. And the more you love God, the more God comes to you. Now, I've been loving God because of the Kundalini experience. It's unavoidable for me as a result of that for decades. And that intensity has not diminished. And what has happened is that God finally, after quite a protracted period of time, showed up inside my consciousness and began communicating to me. At first it was very random and occasional, and then it got more and more, and now God's on tap all the time. I mean, if I want to speak with God, I just sit down or stand up or do whatever I want to do and speak to God, and God will answer me immediately at any time of day or night. This is a wonderful thing. In the process of this, and because religions are all falling apart now, all of them are, they've all become bankrupt and corrupt, and the avatar must come to reestablish order, because when you lose that structure that religion gives, things become very bad, okay? We don't realize the good that religion does. It keeps people within certain guidelines. When it starts to go south, which it has done, well, of course, Satanism comes into play. So, with the avatar, who's already here, may not be here in a manifest, let's give it a name, form just yet. But the influence is very definitely here, and I speak because of my direct experience of it. So, new ways of appreciating, celebrating God, which is what religion is really about, celebrating God, are going to come into play, and this is the age of brotherhood. So it occurred to me, probably because God's told me this, but I don't remember the actual occasion or anything, but it did happen. I'm looking down at the clock on occasion because I got to get some idea. I could go on for a long time here. I won't. Anyway, everything centers around practicing the presence of God. So it occurred to me, let's create a church called the First Church of the Presence of God. And all that happens is you celebrate the presence of God. You can do it anywhere. You don't really need a church. You can go out into nature. You can go into this room I'm in. You can do all kinds of things. But you can celebrate and worship God just like that. You stop. You recognize God within. You know God's there, even if you can't feel God. And you practice the presence of God. And what happens when you practice something? You get better at it, unless you're a complete dingbat. And we have those. But if you persist in practicing something, you're going to get very good at it, which means you'll probably be able to attract God to come and be present. God is already present. If you are unaware of God's presence in you, it's because the world has too much presence in you. You have to clear that out. And that's why you have to empty your mind of everything but God. Well, God's not going anywhere. You can't empty your mind of God. You exist because of God. You are only alive because of God. You only draw breath in your heartbeats because God's present. If God wasn't around, you would not be alive or conscious. God is also the consciousness in your mind. This is a fact. He said with a certain kind of intense authority. Yeah, right. All right. So that's what this First Church of the Presence of God is all about. You practice the presence of God. You can do it anywhere. You don't have to put any money in the collection plate. You don't have to build enormous cathedrals. You don't have to get a whole lot of people together, because if you practice it effectively, you will attract other people, because everyone is attracted by love. And depending on the intensity and magnitude of your love, you can attract the entire world to surround you all at the same moment. And with today's technology, well, there's people already working on that, by the way, in a sort of a 1984 kind of a way. So, all these religions, be they East or West, same thing. Same God, there's only one God. In some cases, you've got a trinity, like Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, or Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Osiris, Isis, and Horus. And there's more and more and more. The triangle, the trinity, this whole thing has enormous symbolic implications. Right. But the truth behind the symbol is identical. There's but one God. There will never be another God. There never has been another God. And all these other names for God are parts of processes. Let's just take the Hindu schematic, because it's a little easier for me to explain in terms that might be understandable in a more practical way. Brahma creates, Vishnu maintains and sustains, Shiva destroys, or a better word is transforms, because everything in the manifest world changes, and that involves transformation from one thing into the other. So these are identifiable parts of God in action in our world. So God himself, herself, is beyond our ken, always will be. Okay. Then you get into all the other gods. Then you get Aphrodite or Jupiter. Okay, the planetary gods, they're all named after forces, and these forces are all differentiating the single power of God into specific avenues of expression. Okay? Or you've got these other gods that represent higher and more noble yearnings or actions, like mercy, compassion, honor, integrity. Each of these are expressions of a quality of God. And so they are a personification, because all of them, if you come into now the other tradition, are angels that represent these virtues. They go on and on and on for the people that hold them, and it never exists at all for the people who don't, which is a bit of a tragedy. Now, so for myself, I have gone into Eastern religion, and I've taken the system of Tantra, which I understand in the simplest of ways. Don't even think about becoming a tantric master. That takes a lifetime. It's the most difficult yoga there is, if you want to get into the technical aspects. So don't even think about it. Ask God, he'll set it up for you. That, of course, you can get done. In Christianity, we have, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy soul, all thy strength, and with all thy mind. Strength and will are the same thing, by the way. Tantra is a direct expression of that same thing. Profound, enduring, sustained, and continuous love. So the way I interpret it is I bring the love of God, the tantric expression of the love of God, to every event in my life. When I eat with tremendous enjoyment, in love with the addition of this blessed food, which is the actual essence of God that is then becoming me within me. Everything else that I do, if I'm speaking, if I'm thinking, if I'm feeling, if I'm creating anything, I do it with this sense and feeling of love. Love is the first direct emanation of God. Jesus Christ was an embodiment of that love. This is how we understand God, through God's emanations. Otherwise, forget about it. The world came from the mind of God, and your world comes from your mind. Yeah? So you seek God, and in seeking God, God comes closer and closer and closer. And long before you know that God is present in doing all the things God does, he will be very subtly changing you from within. It'll go, and it'll seem as if it's tests and trials, bad things happening, the loss of everything, which that happens very often. But really, he's suiting you up for his presence within, which implies, demands that you cut everything else loose. Doesn't mean you don't have access to everything else. You will, you shall, you have. It's all there for you. You just can't get attached to it. You can only get attached to God. If you get attached to that, you lose the contact with God. It's one or the other. That's why it's all or nothing. Surely that's understandable. It's not everybody likes hearing it. People will look for all kinds of ways to get around it. Oh, man. What's it? Everything in life is about this. Everything you see anyone doing is their way of evading God, okay, or looking out for themselves because they think they're God. Now, I have never been fond of the New Age movement, although some people accuse me of it. But I don't care for the New Age movement because I ran into it very early on, very familiar with it, very familiar with a lot of the proponents of it. And it can boil it down to just one thing. The people in the New Age movement have convinced themselves that they're God. Yeah, not only are they God, but they're God with all their faults and shortcomings and everything else thrown in too. Those have just been spiritualized. Well, that's not true. They're not God. You are God in the making. And your higher self is you once you accomplish that. But until you do, probably not a good idea to call yourself God unless you're in the business of making a lot of money, which most of them are. Excuse me. God will make you what you are. Trust God to do this. Anything on your part, you're not going to get it right. It isn't going to happen. You must become as a little child. You get the point here? You don't know anything. Children don't know anything. They flip from one thing to the other. They have a scramble or a tussle with another kid. They instantly forget all about it. That's the childlike mind that you need, because that is the mind that God dwells in, can dwell in, will only dwell in. There are certain exceptions made for those who reach very high stages of wisdom, but then they're made childlike anyway, so, you can't really get around this. You have to trust your parent. I don't care if you go to God the Mother, God the Father, non-binary God, whatever, how God. However it works for you, all right, so be it. Presence of God. Practice the presence of God. And as you do this, God will come more and more into the presence. It's an automatic process. As long as you can hold your attention on it, it'll keep happening. But then if you're distracted, this way, that, it stops. It's like a tape. It stops playing. You come back to it, it starts playing again. You have to be able to have more than a 45-second attention span, which is kind of the way it goes right now. And people, because of the advancement of the material world and the intensity of the distractions, people can't hold focus anymore. How are they supposed to meditate? How are they supposed to practice the presence of God? It has to be singly more important than anything else, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Otherwise, the mind will reason it out one way or another. It'll justify, it'll make excuses. The mind's your biggest enemy. You have to make it your friend. But that is because the mind has to be put in its place. And this can't be done unless you are able to focus on the presence of God to the extent that God can come in and take command of your mind, which he will do. And that's the end of it. The mind is the symbol of the independence of what they call free will, the right to object to God's perfect creation and do your own thing. Well, if it's close to the way God wants it, that's going to work out for you. If it's not, you're going to get plowed under. Big things are going to be happening soon. Big things in nature, big things in the human dynamic. It's all going to depend on where you're standing, and that's a matter of a perspective of the mind, is not so much one having to do with your geographic location. It can be very serious, So you'd better get serious. In a kind of light-hearted way. I think I'm starting to go over the same territory again and again and again. And so I'm going to stop here. How long did we go on for? Well, about the same amount of time as the last time we went on for and went on. So at this juncture, and before I really step in it, wherever it is, around here somewhere, Binky would like to wish you all a wonderful week coming up, and we all hope you will practice the presence of God. I'll be doing it, so we won't run into each other. It does happen. That's right. There's only one mind. You'll figure it out. Say bye, Binky. Binky's really... See, he's probably practicing the presence of God right now. That's why he doesn't say anything, because see, he's not distracted. Be like Binky. Or be yourself, which probably helps too. Let me wish you all a wonderful, wonderful existence, which can get better and better and better if you put your heart into it. Please put your heart into it. That's where the soul is. Soul sits and rests in the upper aspect of the heart. Try to reside there more. Below that's the carnal area, and that is deleterious to the soul or to the... Well, we'll get into that at another time. May God's profound blessing be upon you. Be filled with the presence of God. Everything else is a great big waste of time. God bless you.